of the many growth sectors are best suited for our community. So we retained Elliott Pollock, and the finished plan was provided to staff in March of 2024 and subsequently presented to City Council by then Director of Tourism and Economic Development, Tricia Lewis, in May of 2024. Research took place to analyze our market. So here's a summary of the economic conditions and how we fare competitively. The source of this data is largely U.S. census data along with other regional and state agency data. So I trust that you've read the plan, so I'm not going to go through a lot of it, but just wanted to touch on a few highlights this evening. Specific to this slide, I think what's interesting to point out is that the greater Cottonwood region has a higher percentage of working age population, so that's ages between 20 to 54, compared to the county. That's definitely a positive characteristic to attract businesses to our area or new employers to our area. We have great access to higher education, and we also have a pretty diverse list of occupations here in town, so top 5 being management, then business and financial, healthcare, sales, office work, and construction. We have excellent access to, yes.
Back to the prior slide. I was confused, about the row that says the industry mix is diverse, but then lower in the table it says industry mix of jobs is limited. Can you explain that for me?
Good. That's a good question. I would have to look at the plan to see exactly what Elliott Pollock references there. I think that it would be more that
I think it's a diverse mix of talent, but within the economy, it's a limited mix of jobs.
Right.
Thank you. I think you got it. Yeah. Does that make sense, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So what I love is one of our biggest advantages is our access to, Los Angeles, to Phoenix, to Albuquerque, to Las Vegas, between State Route 260 and 89A, and then of course access to I-17 and I-40. We really do provide those excellent roadway connections. We also have low commute times, positive school grading, and above average high school graduation rates. However, as we've been talking about our areas, housing affordability is an issue, so that's one of the negatives. We, in addition to that third-party research, we also interviewed 65 stakeholders and held 2 roundtables, local roundtables. Those roundtables included a pretty broad cut of our community cloth, from local businesses to educators to public officials, major employers, and whatnot. We also surveyed our residents, and so this is a snapshot of a couple of pieces of input from the resident pool. Here, residents were asked what they see as being the most important economic development initiatives that the city should take on. The top few being business support, investing in infrastructure, and helping to retain and expand existing businesses. Broadband is closely following, and attracting healthcare related business. Some of their, what they were voted on as far as their top community growth priorities: expansion of healthcare services, quite leading here, production of affordable housing, not surprising, better paying jobs, and diverse housing options. So it's that input, and that, again, that I breezed through that really fast. There was a lot of work and a lot of energy put into the research end of the plan development, but that led us to these priority areas of interest, and that's what this is what we're going to talk about tonight. I do want to point out that the very last one, leadership and collaboration, was more, as I understand it, I wasn't here at the time, but as I understand it, it had more to do with kind of the current leadership situations that this poor city was going through at the time when the plan came out. And the consultant felt it was important to point out that it was an important thing for the community to see collaboration and cohesiveness there. So I feel like we're past that, which is good. And so I won't really delve into that. It's really, we're going to talk mostly tonight about those first 4 priority areas of interest. I should also, I bring it up because I figured you read the plan and it's in the plan, so I didn't want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. But also in your packet, you have, what we're going to talk about tonight, you have a spreadsheet that lines all of the initiatives out in a way that is in progress. Short term, which covers fiscal year 27 and 28, so the next fiscal year and the year after that, and then long term, which covers 3 years after that. I bring this up to you because we're not going to go through all of that tonight. We're only going to cover what's in progress and what's short term. But if you want to see what we believe the priorities should be over the next 5.5 years, that's what that spreadsheet is, probably an easy thing for you to review. And then as we go through here, if you're feeling like, as Mario had mentioned, that priorities need to shift, that's what we're here for tonight. So I'm happy to take that into consideration and move forward. So on the house, we're going to start with housing, and housing, an appropriate title by Elliott Pollock and group, meaning that this is the topic that, one of the topics that needs to be addressed. And what I'm going to go through here is housing from an economic development lens and the recommended initiatives that we should undertake. But I do want to say that, as you know, Mr. Bigelow is going to be seeing you next week. He's going to go into a deeper dive on housing. So he's familiar with what I have here on my slides. They, again, dovetail into what he's going to present and then some. So I'm just know that we'll get more into the housing conversation, I think, next week. But certainly, if you have questions about what I'm going to share, feel free to ask. So let's see. So we of course are going to continue to focus on attainable housing. This was a number from the August residential update from community development. At the time, there were nearly 400 market rate units under construction. That's actually shifted down to a smaller number now from a few months back. Of course, the construction is wrapped up, but it isn't affordable housing. It's market rate housing. And I do want to point out, though, that this kind of housing still can have a positive impact on the community because it can increase overall housing supply, allowing people options to move and therefore vacate their prior residence. So that movement still can help, but naturally our goal is to focus on affordability. So that's obviously where our head is at, and that will remain a priority. I just want to be clear on that. Identify and properly zone suitable sites to promote specific housing developments, including city-owned land. Well, we don't have a lot of city-owned land, but we do have some parcels in Old Town areas. So as we look at that Old Town master plan, that's something we want to look at and see if that's an option. Collaborate with development. Was there a question? No. Okay. Collaborate with development stakeholders, including landowners, employers, and developers, to identify needs and remove barriers. We're continuing the conversations with developers to let them know, and this is some of what I can help with too, how can we help you succeed? Part of that too, that I was happy to report a few months back when I met with you the first time, on the housing topic, was to continue that stalled projects outreach. So continue making calls to those projects that seem to have just stalled or stopped or are not moving. I guess those are all three, one and the same, but having those conversations has been really insightful, and so I want to pick that ball back up. It's been admittedly a couple months, and now I'm excited to pick that phone back up and just check in with those projects that are not moving and ask why, and then hopefully help them out. Create a welcomed and streamlined entitlement process. So a couple things that are kind of pointing to this now. The administrative review process should streamline and point to this initiative. The developer marketing packet that Ryan mentioned earlier is something that we are looking at the content for that right now. It's really interesting that as we talk to other municipalities and other teams, you'd think that this would exist, and it really doesn't. And when we just were on a call the other day and we mentioned it, and they said, "Oh, that's a great idea." So I think It's surprising that we haven't found something to mimic, but let's be the leaders on it. And so we have been looking at what kind of content should it contain, so that's kind of where we're at with it, but really need to put some additional focus and get this moving.
And I think that's something that obviously the developers should be able to give you some hints on that.
Absolutely.
And have you had any, while I'm open, are there any developers that you've talked to in the past that have said, no way, cancel, or are they just stalled?
No, I mean, like I said, you know, granted, it's been a couple months since I made a call, so in all honesty, but back then when I did, no, there were no no's. They were just, well, it's cost of construction, it's this, that, and the other. It's, oh, I didn't have much luck on this one situation, so I need to give you guys a call back. And I mean, so nothing that wasn't a hard no, or nothing that was a hard no. And then the other piece to this is a location change of our code review board meeting. So today we had our first code review board meeting at the rec center. And it was interesting that the developer who was there to talk about some future apartments said, his whole team were like, oh, this is a really nice facility. We just wanted to put our best foot forward, have a place where people open the doors and there are actually a lot of people milling around and they get a chance to see how active our community is. And there's also someone at the front desk who can kind of direct them to the room. And it was just a positive validation that we made the right choice there. The Community Land Trust, so we're aware of what this concept is, and we do know that the Verde Valley Community Development Organization led by Mary Shaquin, they're the ones that are kind of moving forward on this, and I think we're just going to keep an eye on it and see how it works. I know this is probably a conversation that could take probably the rest of the evening, but I just know that our eyes are on it and we're listening, and we're side by side with Mary on kind of seeing how it goes. Developing housing development incentives that may include density bonuses, et cetera. So this is the DIGA guidelines that Brian mentioned earlier. So we're kind of already on that, already kind of tapped that, can check that box. And then, as I mentioned, just a reminder that the official housing update will be next week. Any questions on this before I move into the other priorities?
So you mentioned how you were making calls with developers regarding stalled projects. For the rest of what you outlined here, where do you see your involvement? Do you see direct involvement on your part or your department's part?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because in some ways I'm in a support role, and I think that's how it's kind of been working, and I'm good with that. But I think, maybe an additional conversation to kind of maybe further outline. This is just how I think working in the administrative building is kind of evolved. I don't even think we've really I'm looking at Ryan's back, but I don't even think Ryan and I really said, well, you do this and I do this, but it's just kind of naturally supporting what he leads, so.
I'll take a stab at that one. With Michelle around, it's been really nice, and I think her role really is advocating for Cottonwood as a place to come and develop. She has dove in and now has at least baseline information to have those initial conversations with developers about what the process looks like, about how to get through it, about who to contact. Ava, our interim community development director, has given her nothing but kudos, because in previous communities where she's been, community development, planning and zoning often butt heads with economic development. Economic development wants to say, yes, just come in and do this. Yes, yes, bring it. And community development's like, whoa, we have rules to follow here. She's working hand in hand with community development, so we can not only encourage folks to come here and build here and develop here and grow businesses here, but we can also tell them appropriately how they need to go about doing that. So I'd say we're still in the initial phases, but as much as she's going to be interacting with the business community, we want a lot of that conversation to be, and here's why it's good to do business here, and here's how you can go do that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's very well said. And I'll just add to that my work on the tourism side, and in terms of promoting the city as a wonderful place to not only visit, but to live and play. It all supports the efforts being made on the housing side and, you know, attracting business and attracting developers. They'll want to build where it seems appealing. So I think that's the other piece with the marketing that I can bring to the table, so, yeah.
I just wanted to comment too that I really am happy to see the concept. I know I was at a meeting where it was mentioned about, you know, developing a packet for developers that kind of outlines the process, you know, breaks it down. Here, you know, here are the steps. Here's who you see. Here's what you do, and simplifies the process for them so that they're not, you know, they're not just being sent around in municipal circles trying to figure out what to do. So, you know, having a basic outline of the process, if we don't already have that, it'd be a great thing to have. I really think that that would be pretty essential at this point. And I remember when it was brought up in a meeting, the Verde Valley Community Development Organization had kind of a, you know, we were all there kind of trying to figure things out, and some of the people who were in attendance were developers. And when that idea came forward, it really, it's like, you mean we don't already do that? So, yeah, that'll be a good thing to put together.
I agree.
And refine over time.
Yes.
It may not be perfect to begin with, but it'll be a tool going out the door, and it can be refined depending on what developers' needs are.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. I agree. I think anything we develop should be a living and breathing document because that's who we are, and I think having that flexibility is helpful to adapt it as needed. So, thank you. All right, so the other priority area is quality of life and quality of place. And in progress is the RFQ process for the Old Town Master Plan, as you're aware. That plan will help us to analyze the highest and best use of city-owned properties and buildings in Old Town. So we have just under 10 vendors who have submitted in response to the RFQ, which is great. And our aim is to award that vendor sometime in the next few weeks or coming month. Additionally, we will continue to support the rec center, the library, transit. These facilities really are the backbone of our community. They do enable commerce and they help improve quality of life. And ultimately, there's that word again, Cottonwood's appeal. So having these facilities just makes Cottonwood look good to developers and businesses coming to set up shop here.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that, that the importance, I think, of supporting these facilities and investing in these facilities, maintaining these facilities, keeping them fresh and vital. And I personally think placing the priority on maintaining and supporting and keeping them fresh and vital over creating new facilities.
Okay.
Got to take care of what you got.
Yeah.
Yes, and I agree. I'm a firm believer in doing what you do really well and not spreading so thin to where it's just all so-so. I agree. The other, we mentioned surveys earlier, so this was your perfect question, Vice Mayor. We will talk with in-house about the Polco concept, but yes, the interest is, of course, to regularly survey our residents to identify and affirm what they love about the community and what needs to be improved. The other piece is enhancing the utilization also of the station on 6th. So, you know, the station on 6th creates jobs, it promotes senior health and independence, which is so important. So we'll do our share to help support and collaborate where needed as well.
So this one kind of threw me a little bit, and maybe it's just the wording, enhance, improve, and increase utilization of the senior center. I think I speak on behalf of council when I say we all support the senior center. I think just the city staff does as well. as well as supporting all of the nonprofits in the area. But I think the task of improving and increasing utilization of the senior center is something that's the responsibility of the Station on the Six executive director and their board. I don't really see it as the responsibility of the city to do that. So, and I know this wording was created by Elliot Pollock. But could we revise it just to say, support the senior center and the community's nonprofits? And maybe as we go forward, we can define what that looks like.
Well, I can, yes, I see where you're going. I actually have a piece from the plan that might help give context to specifically the senior center, and that is, by improving seniors' physical and mental health, senior centers reduce the burden on emergency services and costly long-term care, keeping seniors in their home longer, which benefits the local tax base. So you can see kind of where the line of thinking might be. But, to your point, I mean, we do have a lot of kind of free marketing channels, if you will, just ways to get word out and remind the community of different services. I mean, through our social media and our newsletters and whatnot. So that's where my head was at with this, at a minimum, but I don't think we're talking resources in terms of financial.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
Or thinking.
So is it more just about utilizing, especially now since we're doing some of our own senior programming, utilizing what we do to enhance the awareness of the senior center and what they offer to seniors?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, we can work on.
Yeah.
That I'm
improving
fully
a
in
little bit.
support of.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Enhance awareness, I think that helps.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, and not only the senior center, I would say all nonprofits in the community. There's so many of them that are doing great work for our community.
For sure.
And delivering similar results as what you described.
Yeah,
And that can go in the marketing piece to the developers as well.
yeah.
And these are the facilities that we've got, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that was touched on in Ryan's presentation, and that I have in mind as well, is just leveraging our social media and doing a lot more sharing of posts and stuff. Just to be able to, we don't have to recreate the wheel, but tagging on and sharing and whatnot with the other community, with the other nonprofits, or with nonprofits, et cetera. That will make it easy to kind of help them get the word out as well and improve that awareness. Okay. So now moving on to our third.
I'm sorry, I'm usually kind
Yeah,
of late.
go right ahead.
We have a riverfront master plan in process, correct? Is that? or do
We have a riverfront master plan. We will have coming up discussion about the riverfront concept plan here, but we have a Parks and Rec master plan already. This is separate, and I actually made a note because, yes, we have this master plan, but there was just some consensus that we should focus on what we have. And so
Right.
that there may need to kind of take a look at that in a different light.
Okay. That basically answers well, it doesn't basically, it does answer my question.
Okay.
Okay. So any questions before I move on to the next
Yes.
area?
Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
In Ryan's presentation, I was trying to find it here, but there was some comment about developing a telehealth hub, and this might be, the senior center might be that private-public relationship.
So you're speaking about a partnership to where we could have a telehealth there, kind of a center, develop that there in partnership with, and then help enhance their services as well, while we do a partnership, a win-win. Okay, yeah, nope, definitely something, we're in communication. I believe you were all invited to the 6th Street, what we're doing on the 15th, and just that alone is a way to support a group like that. So we've had some conversations about maybe hosting a coffee with the council there, something of that nature. So there are things we can do that don't cost us money, but we can help support for sure. Thank you.
one statistic that really jumped out at me is the crime rate. It actually sort of surprised me how it compares to state of Arizona. And I don't know how well the state of Arizona compares to the rest of the U.S. And, I think, it's just tremendous. So you could talk all day about what contributes to that. We've got a great police force that react to people who are breaking the law. And, I think it's, we need to address it from an economic development standpoint because it's an inhibitor to economic development. And how this can be approached in terms of, certainly our, interaction with a collaboration with health facilities and mental health facilities. I think, and, how this relates to job creation and the importance of job creation. I'd be interested, I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not asking for the data, but I just, the thing I thought about was, what's the correlation between AMI and crime rate? I bet you I'm willing to bet there's a correlation where AMI is below, state average. I'm willing to bet that the crime rate is higher than state average. And I just, I think that's an important area to talk about, in terms of,
Yeah.
Job creation and partnership with mental health organizations and, and how it even ties in with recreation and those things.
And Bob, I'll say that I was with the PD when those stats came out, and we were all like, where do they get those from? I had no idea where those came from. So I will tell you that I have a hard time with what was presented because we have no idea where they came up with those numbers.
Okay. And I want to make sure that
No, and I'll
there's
just
no
say that.
reflection on the.
Yeah, and I'll just say that there's different types of data collection and different methods, and I think right now they're trying to go to a different FBI system, which is better, but I'll just say don't dive too much into what they provided, because
Plus
when
it is old.
when I saw it too, I was like, what? And I was working there, I'm like, what's going on?
Plus,
I felt that
it's
way,
old
too.
data as well. Some of it's old data.
Well, then you left.
Well,
Yes.
it actually had nothing to do with me, it just, I was like, what is all
And
this?
that's what Tricia shared with me, from the original presentation, that everyone was surprised at that. I didn't touch on, I was going to bring that up, but I didn't include it per se, because I think we want to look into that. It was surprising to me, it was surprising to our city manager and to staff, so it's definitely something to look at. I think we're all on the same page
I
with
think it
that.
would be surprising to Judge Kelly as well, because we get monthly reports from her, and she doesn't seem to be overwhelmed with criminal cases coming before her.
Right.
So, and I realize, yes, some things may go out to the county, but as far as Cottonwood proper is concerned, our crime statistics are not overwhelming.
Plus, they just did the DWI task force. I think they got 2. Was it 2 DWIs they gave out? Something like that. It was
Small.
nothing.
Yeah.
Well, then I'd be interested in finding out what.
I'd be happy to circle back with
Yeah.
you all on that, because that's definitely something we didn't look into that before tonight, frankly, and I didn't want to overstep and misstep and say something, but.
So on
it's-
your master chart
Yes.
here with the priorities based on time, it says for public safety matters that relate to economic development, it says TBD evaluating initiatives. So
Exactly.
So at some point in the future, we'll be getting an update. Is that right?
For sure.
Okay.
Yep, yep. Good. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we'll move on to education, training, and talent is the third focus area. That really is what you would think when you think of workforce. So we'll start with supporting Yavapai College's Verde Valley campus through activities such as assisting in securing resources and support needed to continue to provide their outstanding education and training programs, helping them to unite educational offerings with workforce development needs, so, kind of bridging that gap, developing more effective job training pathways and placement processes between employers and post-secondary educational institutions, which would be Yavapai College. And there's a couple examples of what that could look like. The other piece is improving communication with high school students, so to keep them informed about career and college opportunities here at home, so we don't lose them. So all of these workforce initiatives that are short-term that I just referenced really first begin with recognizing who is in this ecosystem and meeting with them. So that's the schools, trade educators like Bhakti, employers, workforce boards. And my goal is to, make introduction with these folks, which I've been doing. I had a chance to meet with the dean and the associate dean at Yavapai College, had a lovely meeting with them and shared with them the importance of our partnership and how we want to work more deeply with them, so they're very open to that. I'm participating in the Yavapai County Workforce Summit events, so really getting a really good snapshot of what's happening at the larger state level, and then collaboration with what's happening in our county and how we can prepare for that. And then my next step is really just to develop regular meetings. I want to meet with these folks on the regular so that there's regular communication about where the gaps are, what are the needs, what the real landscape looks like, and then how we can help. So I think all the initiatives that I referenced can be addressed after I start having these meetings. I think first we need to just start talking, and they all seem open to it so far, so that's kind of where that's at. But over the next 2 fiscal years, you'll see some movement in this for sure.
Just from my perspective, and I hear this a lot, we watch our kids, right? We raise our families, and our kids leave because the opportunity's not here. And then they always come back, right, in their 50s because this is where they wanted to be. They would have stayed here originally. So I think we really, in my opinion, need to find a way to bridge that gap of how do we, like you said, keep those families here, and how do we keep those homegrown kids here, because they want to be here, they do, because they always return, right? But it's just, what's that piece that bridges that to keep them here for that? So
Exactly.
I think that's one of the most important things we can do, because we watch it happen all the time. Kids leave and then they come back 20 or 30 years later because this is where they wanted to be. So
Yeah.
we just need to make sure it's here
I
for
think
them.
one way maybe we could attack that, if possible, is with companies that don't need the employees to work at their office in
Right.
Phoenix or whatever. So remote work for some of the kids or whatever, whoever, anybody for that matter.
Yep, that speaks to that remote work piece that Ryan had mentioned.
Right.
And a campaign that, gets people to recognize that they can work from here and work for anyone.
Right.
And that speaks to broadband, which we'll touch on a minute here, because that's super important if you're going to be, targeting that kind of resident. But yeah, I think we all want the same thing. I think there's just pieces that we need to understand before we can provide the solution. So this is a good focus area for us, though. I'm excited about it, and it seems like so far folks that I've talked to are excited about it as well. So I think it's just bringing them together also and talking in the same room, because everyone's wanting to address the solution, but they're maybe doing it separately. So.
We need to connect with some of these potential employers and say, no, look, we have educational opportunities here. We have Yavapai College. People here, kids can be halfway done with their college education by the time they graduate from high school with some of the programs that Yavapai College has classically supported. This isn't something new, but they are now offering, a 96-hour bachelor's degree, which pares down quite a lot, for quite a number of credit hours are shaved off, so that a bachelor's degree is highly attainable. and in some fields. But who are the employers who can take these kids on? If we're training them, where are they going to go? I mean, some of the programs that we have here at Yavapai College are kind of limited now, and the general studies programs seem to have kind of dried up and blown away. If you want to take an art class, you can't do that here anymore, I don't think. You're not going there for liberal arts education, you're going there for specific training. But, other than healthcare, and fire and safety, where, how can we keep kids here unless the businesses are here to bring them into?
Right. I think what's exciting too is I'm part of a few different associations, like the Arizona Group of Economic Developers, AED, and they have a workforce committee, and I'm on that committee, and it's helpful to hear the ideas that are generated. I think that's one of the wonderful things about spending an hour, once a month sitting in on these calls, when sometimes you go, I've got a lot of work to do. But the idea generation is so wonderful. And so I'll be gleaning, just to kind of get ideas about what's being done. Now, Phoenix Metro is a different situation, but there are other people that sit in these meetings that are also from rural areas. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So now, before we move away from workforce, any final questions before I jump into the business attraction and investment side? Okay. So this is our fourth and final priority for the night. We'll continue to remain the economic and commercial hub of the Verde Valley. We've got a number of ways to help in that regard. Retail Strategies is coming on board here shortly, which I'm super excited about. Regular collaboration with business owners and operators. I am really wanting to do one-on-ones with the business owners and operators. That will have to be over a long period of time, but I think it might be worth it just to develop those relationships and let them know that they have a city representative that they can come to if they have questions. Yes, Vice Mayor.
And I just wanted to share something you probably already know, but I hear a lot from small business owners outside of Old Town that they don't feel like they get a whole lot of attention from the city. So
that's not surprising.
in your collaboration with business owners, if you could make sure they get the attention that they deserve.
Definitely. Thank you.
Especially at the other end of town. Talked to a couple of business people where I used to have my business, and yeah, they all feel like they're being ignored by the city. They feel like everything is down here in Old Town and that's all we care about. So we need somehow to reach out to the other end of town as well.
And I don't think I really processed this beforehand, but those places like Marshall's and Ross that are coming in, they help those businesses next to them, in extreme amounts, to the point where I have a business that is next to where Ross is going in, and we are excited because we know that that's going to generate more things for
Traffic.
the mom and pop stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the retail strategies coming on board will really help us with that in the full circle.
For sure. Yeah. And the other way to reach out to the community is through a survey, a regular survey, just to, some of it is just so that they feel heard, but some of it is to, obviously do something with the input, and that would be my goal is, it's a way to stay in touch with the landscape and what's happening in our community. And the survey is a broader, easier way to do that. And then that, I think, coupled with some regular one-on-ones, maybe it's one business a week, is kind of what I'm thinking. That wouldn't take that long, and I think it would go far.
And the chamber, you've got the chamber on there, they could even
And we have
help
the
with
chamber,
that.
absolutely.
They could help,
Yeah.
send out the survey. But when I was at Glendale, and you know this very well, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but it's much easier to retain and expand current businesses than to get new companies in here.
Yeah.
So, just a survey is just, I did 220 surveys a year when I was in Glendale for businesses.
Wow.
And it helped immensely. We can't
Yeah.
do that, but it's a big deal. It really
Well,
helps.
and I love that, and sometimes maybe it is, maybe it's a more frequent survey, but it's shorter, and then that way it's not cumbersome on anyone, but that gives us a chance to be in front of them more often, which isn't a bad thing. Okay. Yes, the chamber collaboration, and then, of course, our destination marketing is really doing well. I'll talk a little bit about that more here shortly. Continue to review, update, and modernize local ordinances that govern housing. This really, I have here that's part of the housing initiatives, and it is. In speaking with Ryan just before this meeting, actually, we were saying that this is a good way to leverage high ground. Our lobbyist firm, who has been very engaged with us already about what we should be looking at from that perspective. So. Plan for and invest in strategic economic development opportunities in Old Town Cottonwood. So the Old Town Master Plan will assist in that. I think any business recruitment that will continue, and I'm curious to see what retail strategies can or recommends in that area. Old Town Association support, we continue to work with them. We have a meeting with them in a couple weeks, actually. The visitor center experience I have on the list here because I feel like we could use some help in that. I just need to have a conversation with our chamber and see if there's ways to even make it look more open from the exterior, maybe with a sign or something. It doesn't have to be anything major, but it just looks very quiet whenever I drive past or walk past. And so just some things to improve in that space would be good. And then continue to promote Old Town, which we do. Secure sufficient funding. So this is all about broadband. The general sense here is that we're actually faring pretty well. Or I should say Cottonwood is pretty well served. But we will continue to sit in on the Yavapai County Broadband Initiative group. And we know WECOM is coming on board. And so there's some, I think this one is kind of addressed, but we'll stay on top of it because, again, as I mentioned, especially in the vein of remote workers and whatnot, I mean, we need to make sure that our infrastructure in this regard is top-notch. Increased participation in multi-jurisdictional transportation infrastructure planning efforts. So what we think of here is the Verde Valley Master Transportation Plan. Attended the open house back in the fall of last year, and we'll stay abreast of what they're doing and how we can support and get the word out. In cooperation with regional, okay, so this is water. I'm glad Tom is here in case you have some questions. In cooperation with regional partners, determine the long-term demand for water in Cottonwood and the Verde Valley. As I understand it, this has somewhat been accomplished already with a regional and state study that was done back in 2009 and 2010, and that there's also an ongoing legislative requirement to conduct supply and demand assessments for all of the area's groundwater basins, actually all of the state's 51 groundwater basins, and that's something that's, I believe it's in its third year now out of every 5-year cycle. Any comments on that you want to add, Tom? No? Good. Any questions on that one?
So I just, for the 4.4B, which sounds like the plan to address 4.4A, is that the right approach, Mr. Whitmer? I mean, I don't want to get into a long discussion here, but just,
He doesn't either.
I just want to make sure that if that's something that we have as a near-term priority, that that's the right thing to be working on. Because I know we've had discussions about this in the past, about working regionally and, yeah.
As far as the first one is concerned there, as Michelle said, all that's already been done. They're just reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. It's kind of interesting, I've talked about how the institutional knowledge at the Department of Water Resources is pretty much gone. And that is the result, and the result of that was the legislation that came forward saying, hey, you need to look at all 51 groundwater basins in the state and do an appraisal level study of those basins, determine the current sources of water and how much supply is there, and then compare that against the demands and projected demands out 50 years. It's already been done twice. One specifically for the Verde Valley, That was in conjunction with Department of Water Resources, USGS, and Bureau of Reclamation. And then the one after that was the statewide one that was done by the Water Resource Development Commission. And now they're here, they're doing it again. So I'm not sure we're going to gain anything new by trying to do that locally again. The best thing is to participate in that effort and provide whatever information the Department of Water Resources is interested in looking at. There's actually a piece of legislation that just got dropped as well this year that's getting very specific about what information they want for each of the groundwater basins over and above what has been previously done. So I'm not sure we're going to gain anything from over and above what's already been done there for A. As far as B is concerned, it's such a dramatic, well, basically everybody in our area here is their source of water is groundwater. That's it. We're limited to groundwater and effluent. And over and above that, I'm not sure where you're going to go with it and get anything. We've looked at importing water into the area. As part of the Apache Nation settlement, there's a possibility that there's going to be water that would be imported in here once that settlement is finally approved, which is possibly years into the future. But the cost of that is just outrageous. $12,000 to $13,000 an acre foot just for the infrastructure alone, not counting the operational costs. That's more than 10 times greater than what it costs us to do water now. So it's just not feasible for us to even look at some earthquakes.
So is there a long-term water management strategy that speaks to, the effluent and how we're going to protect our water going forward?
Within Cottonwood, there is. We've already put together our water demand model that projects us out through build-out. We know how much water we need. We negotiated that in our settlement agreements with both Yavapai Apache Nation and with Salt River Project. But there's a trump card that's looming out there that could come in and just blow that out of the water and limit us even further than what those settlements are there. And that's the adjudication. And that's the unknown. That's the million-dollar question of exactly how are they going to address all of these wells that are deemed to be pumping surface water, or a portion of surface water. We still don't know that. That's the unanswered question, and that's the kind of the overarching sword that could really smash us and knock us down even further from where we're at.
So I think, back to my initial point, it doesn't sound like 4.4B is a place we want to go. We need to go.
Not necessarily.
So maybe put that on hold or demote it
Yeah.
or something like that.
I would agree. I mean,
And you're saying that there is a document that defines how we are going to ensure
Exactly.
we have water for the long term?
exactly.
Okay, so then I don't.
Well, okay, let's
Yes or no?
Let's qualify
It
that by
depends.
just saying, with what we know today, with
Right.
the settlements that we've negotiated,
Yeah.
that you guys will be addressing on the 20th, we're good. Beyond that, if the adjudication comes down and does something over and above that, which restricts our water use even further, that's something that's going to be, we're going to have to address at that point in time. And we're trying to make plans to try and second guess what is going to happen and be prepared for it so it doesn't impact us. And that's part of the direct potable reuse that we're looking into. We're in the 4th year of that at this point in time. How can we maximize use of our effluent and become even more efficient in what we do? There's also potential ways to develop groundwater that would be outside this zone of impact and that would not be deemed to be surface water at all, that we're looking into, and that would be developing wells on the Forest Service.
Is there a regional water management consortium? Does NAMWU qualify in that regard?
No. NAMWA is simply, it was formed basically back in 2000. It was formed basically to look at how can we get water from a regional perspective in here, as well as ensure that we're not impacted by anything at the legislature. We pretty much exhausted everything we could potentially look at with regards to importing waters in here and using what we have here the most efficient way possible. And at this point in time, all they're really doing is just monitoring the legislature. That's all they really do. Payson was able to figure out their issue by getting water from a Indian water rights settlement. They got water from Craig Reservoir, which is right in their backyard, as opposed to us bringing it clear over the mountain into Camp Verde, treating it, and then shooting it our way. William just completely backed out and said they'll fix their own problems. As far as importing water, we looked at importing water from the Colorado River into here. Right now, the Colorado River doesn't look like a very good option, though, but an incredibly expensive option. But we did look at it to see what would the possibility be, because there are some pipelines that are in the Colorado River that you could have taken advantage at least into Flagstaff or Williams, and then it would have just taken a pipeline down. We did look at both of those options, one with a new pipeline from Lake Powell and one from the river over in the Kingman area.
So, Mr. Whitmer, I'm wondering, under this heading of business investment and job creation, I think it would be helpful maybe after the adjudication settlement decision is made to have public awareness, public communication about the long-term plan for water in
Absolutely.
Cottonwood. Something that could be shared that's maybe part of the developer marketing package, or as well as for our local community, because they are confused.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the reason we went out and were proactive in getting a designation. We were a designated adequate water supplier of water here in Cottonwood. And we proved up that there was enough water in there to get us through build out. In other words, 6,000 acre feet of water. So we've proven that we have way in excess of 6,000 acre feet of water in storage here for more than 100 years. The issue now, though, is that we've got these settlements that are saying, oh, no, we're going to ratchet you down. You can't do more than this. And of course, SRP comes along and says, no, we're going to ratchet you down even further. And the adjudication may come along and say, oh, we're going to knock you all the way out of the water, and say, uh-oh, you're in trouble. Politically speaking, that's not going to happen. They can't just come in and turn off water to, everybody in the valley, or 65,000 people. Just can't do it. It's not going to happen. But what they're going to do with, that's the unknown. We just don't know at this point in time. They could come in and limit us further, which could hinder development further in the future. But for now, we're just moving ahead. We've got a plan in place that says this is how much water we're going to need at build out. Here's how we're going to get there. If we need to go beyond that, these are things that we can do, and we're looking at doing them. Ryan pointed out earlier about dropping wells. Currently, you can drop wells to your heart's content, but you may get a limit on how much you can pump out of those holes on a total basis once the adjudication comes in here.
Thank you.
So should these objectives be rewritten? Because it just sounds, both those objectives are kind of out of our hands. We're at the mercy of other, entities, but it's still important to communicate that we have an adequate water supply.
Absolutely. And we do that to the developers, because that's been a benefit to them. By doing that, we're making it easier for a developer, because a developer, if they're going to develop a subdivision, a legally defined subdivision, then they have to submit an application to the Department of Water Resources for a adequate water supply determination. And that's very costly, because you've got to do a hydrologic study and a miniature model to show that the water you're going to be pumping in combination with the surrounding pumping is going to drop the water table below 1,000 feet. That's very costly. So we went out and got this designation and said, look, if you want to build within the city service area here, all it takes is a letter from us saying, we've got the water, here's our designation, and they don't have to do anything. And so every time a developer comes in, it's one of the first things we tell them is that we've got the water. I mean, Sunbelt with the 89 and Vine, it's one of the first things they asked of us. What about water? And so it's been very, very helpful.
I think we should revisit. I agree with you, Councilor Marks.
I would have to say that this is kind of like what Councilmember Dow was talking about with the police statistics. Elliott Pollock really doesn't have a grasp on the water side of the equation, so they just threw some things out there.
Well, they recognize the importance of it, but maybe and plus this is a year and a half later.
Wouldn't matter.
Although that wouldn't matter with
That
this
wouldn't matter
particular
with water.
situation, but,
But I think he was also reflecting the survey input that,
Yes.
from the
Right.
population at large.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, but, the necessity to continue to at least converse with regional partners still makes sense to do. It's not going to change much. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, but it's a matter of maintaining the connections and just carrying on a conversation. We're not going to change the terms of these water agreements. I mean, once they're in place, that's as far as we can get, and this adjudication is going to go on forever. So, no, the only point I can see for continuing to connect with regional partners is so that we all are on the same page about protecting what we can, about understanding what our resources are, and making sure that we're properly protecting them from the potential to be, to bring, we don't want to bring developers in who are just going to, suck up a whole bunch of water that the community itself needs, or that even, that would affect people in the region. That's what scares people, and that's where the education would come in. But yeah, it's, the wording here might be redone a little bit, but the regional connection is still, in my opinion, essential.
No, that's helpful. Yep. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. And you're right on the water. We get these PIFs from Arizona Commerce Authority, and we were just talking at our code review board meeting this morning while we had leadership, department heads there, and saying, okay, what's viable, what's not about this particular PIF, and the water needs were just incredibly high for a manufacturer of. So it wouldn't work. So yes, this is part of the conversation, is what is reasonable for our area for these developers. All right, so also in progress is or in progress, I should say, is this piece, the recommitting, and I think he meant recommitting from, again, a year and a half ago. So I would say, yes, we're continuing to invest in the city's tourism program. Here's a snapshot of some of our highest performing social media posts recently. You'll see that this one that talks about doing the different, tour of, and showing a stop at Red Rooster specifically, but it's a reel, so it highlighted a bunch of businesses. You're looking at 3,100 likes and loves, so really great engagement on our social media from the tourism side. And here is a snapshot of what the calendar year 25 looked like from Destination IQ. They're the group that Tricia brought in early in 2025. And I just have to say, I think she did a stellar job. Being a destination marketer for 15 years, I'm really pleased with kind of the foundations she's set for us and for me, frankly, by bringing this group together. And they're just very committed. They do an excellent job. They report out every other week to me. We share, we present to our TAC group an update of which Destination IQ is present. So they're just really engaged, and they're doing a great job. And every month they learn more and more and more. So it's hard to imagine they'll improve as a partner, but I think they will somehow, and we'll just continue to do a great job in the tourism DMO side.
So how,
Oh, question?
the thing that I struggle with data like this is connecting the dots all the way to the end. And at the end of the day, the end result I'm looking for is increased revenue for the city. And how is this translating to increased revenue for the city other than anecdotal, data? And I'm just saying that's my struggle. And is there a way to complete that equation.
Absolutely. There is definitely a way to do that. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can definitely come back around to you all with that. But return on investment for tourism is something I'm really familiar with, and I know the importance of it. And so I'd be happy to put some metrics in place that will help us gauge the success of the program. One such tool that I was going to mention coming up here is an economic fiscal impact analysis. So basically answering that question of helping to understand the fiscal impact of our tourism industry. And once we do that, it's just like the resident surveys. Once you do it year over year over year, or at least somewhat frequently, and you have that initial benchmark, then we can really see, are we moving the needle up or down? So there will be a little bit of a time period where we'll have to establish baselines and then see how they trend from there. But absolutely, I'm with you on that. I don't think we've had that quite yet, but that's part of the DMO role. Yeah. Okay. And then speaking of data, we do have in place Datafy, which is a geolocation technology. So this can help answer that question somewhat, not so much on the dollar side, but just as far as visitor activity. So we've partnered with Datafy to kind of measure how our visitor activity and volume looks like, and we do regularly report that out to our TAC, which we meet with every other month, and we send it out in a stakeholder newsletter every quarter. Happy to add you all to that if you'd like to see that, if you're not receiving that newsletter. But this has been interesting, definitely to work with. It's pretty involved and pretty deep, so I'm getting myself more familiar with Datafy. But we're also starting to look at event attendance, so geofencing, events, kind of where we'd anticipate people to be, and the event location, and then having a sense of how many people have attended, and then we can bounce that against the event organizer to say, does this sound right to you, and kind of have a conversation. So this is somewhat of a newer partnership, but so far I like what I'm seeing. Joining in regional and state initiatives and organizations for supporting the wine industry, we'll continue our collaboration with the Verde Valley Wine Consortium. I feel like, honestly, that the way that's worded is very kind of heavy-handed. I think the bottom line takeaway for me is just to say we're in support of it. I don't know, when you talk about advocacy and whatnot, I don't know how...
I totally agree.
I could see you nodding your head, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the statement that was done by Mr. Pollock, I think, is more involvement than I think the city should be. We can support them, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. And then we'll strengthen our relationship with, similar to how we want to get closer to this, to the higher ed side of things and the Yavapai College and whatnot. We also want to make sure that we're close to the SBDC and continue to promote its resources and services, sharing out through social, having regular meetings with them. I can tell you that Ruth Ellen Olinsky, who's been our contact, is now working at the state level. So they're getting her replacement. They're searching for her, her or him. So as soon as that person lands, I'll definitely reach out and say hello and start that relationship. Okay, this piece, and I know it's getting late, so I'll wrap up soon here, I promise, but developing an interactive inventory of all vacant, developable, and available land in the city, now this was Elliot Pollock's recommendation, whether it's for planned commercial or even residential. So they're seeing an inventory that encompasses all of it. I definitely know that we're on the retail strategies side. They'll be able to handle, and they're going to be retained to help us with this inventory from a commercial side. But there are other pieces also, like office and industrial, that we would want to incorporate in that inventory. And I am weighing the benefit or not of including residential in that as well. I know, at least from a commercial and industrial standpoint, that makes sense. So kind of thinking that one through a little bit, but one thing I do want to do, and one thing I'm going to start as early as tomorrow morning with one of my first meetings, is to get closer to the real estate industry here, as far as having a few realtors in my back pocket who can help me understand what our inventory is on the commercial side. And I know Retail Strategies is doing that as well, but I think being able to easily tap and have them in my back pocket to say, hey, what about this listing or whatever? I don't know if I should say this, I don't know if it's right to do this, but one of the brokers has actually already given me some access to the MLS. So it's going to be interesting to see how knowledgeable I can become on the real estate side to really, again, understand what we have available, because that's, I think, one of the big questions. So I think by a few different sources, we're going to pull all this together and know what our inventory is. And then plan for and invest in strategic economic development opportunities at the airport. So the thinking here is that the airport has a lot of opportunity. There is an RFQ conversation taking place about additional airport hangars, and there's also some conversation going on around events. Run the Runway was something that I put in the presentation. I've since understand it might not be maybe the best idea. It could be a car show or something, but that idea is to bring the community into the airport and to see the airport in a different light and as a community partner. And I
Why
think
not
that would
do
be
Run the Runway?
Smart. Well, some of the runners I've talked to said that it's not visually interesting compared to
Could
maybe
make
some
it
other
interesting, you
airports.
could have them outrun the Embry-Riddle planes as they're doing their
Oh.
touch and go. That would be really
Well, there you go.
interesting.
Well, it's nothing's off the table. I think at this point we're just brainstorming, but
Can
Yeah.
I say, I agree 100% with what I think is a great economic development potential at the airport. I'm just a little disappointed that the RFQ is limited to additional airport hangars. I know that was the Airport Commission's recommendation. So maybe for the time being, that's fine, but is there a plan for defining what, the broader scope of what could be developed there at
Like
the
a
airport?
restaurant, is that what you're thinking? Or something like that, or?
I
I would
I
take,
just know when we did the tour up there, Bruce was showing us, the wonderful view from up there and, all the space that's available, and there's just so much potential up there.
we've got an airport manager who was, for all I know, he was managing the piece of beach that the Wright brothers took off from when they took off. I mean, he's been, doing this job forever. He's a fantastic resource. It'd be interesting to find, what ideas he has and on an ongoing basis. This is, I'm happy to see that we're starting to change the narrative about the airport. And I think that is a very important piece of real estate when it comes to economic development that we should leverage and, leverage the knowledge that we have there before he retires.
Sedona has a great airport, and they're really making all kinds of plans up there, and that's a
Right.
great
Yeah.
priority for them.
yeah.
Council, if I can
Well-
add also, that the hangars, and the reason for starting with the hangars is because of the hangar waiting list. We have a defined need for those hangars and for something that will produce additional revenue. There's an age-old saying in aviation that if you want to make $1 million in aviation, you start with $5 million, because that's generally what happens. And Ryan can attest, when we met with the aircraft mechanic that's opening his shop, he quoted us that during, and so that's why he's very strategic in very limited growth of his business and working. I think there are opportunities, Ryan and I have talked about it. I think the primary opportunities for revenue is going to come from the non-aeronautical properties that we have adjacent to the airport. And there will come a time where, as we see growth, then you'll start to see more of a demand. But from the airport standpoint, it's rarely a case of if you build it, they will come. And so those are things where, like I said, this is the safe path forward to identify what it may cost us to put in some hangars, but there's a guaranteed revenue stream there. And everything else, specifically after we complete the rates and charges analysis, then we can kind of determine what's kind of our next step forward in economic development.
So for the next fiscal year, can there be a conceptual plan or something to define what the potential is at the airport, and then develop a prioritization of what the focus areas should be?
Yeah, we can look at, given the current, flying community, what the needs would be. Maybe it's an avionics shop, those type of things. But understand, those are aviation-specific services that they'll provided by either an FBO or a SASO that is specific to that, and you will get some employment, some sales tax, but they're not going to be a tremendous amount of economic return.
Well, yeah, so I was talking about that as well as what you were talking about before, the non-aviation.
Yes, and that's a deeper
Development.
thing that Ryan had talked about, the opportunity zones and creating that type of thing.
Yeah, so just a couple things we're talking about. I think tomorrow we actually have our initial kickoff meeting to talk about an airport overlay zone. Mr. Cifuentes is probably much more familiar with that than I am, but just to create a zone which enables a little bit more opportunity for anything that's on the airport property there. Currently, we still have the zoning of our regular city standards, and maybe that doesn't always apply to something that's going to be on the airport. So we're going to start talking about an airport overlay zone, and then the opportunity zone. We're monitoring what that looks like, and I don't know if that's in this presentation, Michelle, so I'm sorry. But we believe that part of that opportunity zone could be on airport property, where we have a lot of I-2 and availability for not just aviation. That there could be all kinds of opportunity out there.
So you're saying we're gonna have Buc-ee's at the airport?
That is not what I said.
That's what you're saying, we're gonna get Buc-ee's at the airport?
Good, good. Everyone good on that one?
Buc-ee's and Costco.
Thank you. Okay.
Holy grail.
So wrapping up here quickly, so I mentioned the fiscal impact analysis for tourism. This is a study that we would want to do in the next year or so. And then similarly, doing a quick comparative analysis of Cottonwood's tourism programs compared to other tourism-oriented communities that are of similar size and scope, maybe targeting the similar type of audience. The point being is that I really feel we need like a comp set, what we would call it, is to say that, hey, gosh, I don't even know who it is yet, to be honest. We're just starting to wrap our head around who's our competition, who is going to go there instead of coming here. And so we need to figure out who those folks are and just kind of watch them and understand what they're doing differently or similarly to us, and learn best practices as well. So that's something that will be a fun exercise. And then I have a note here that AOT, the Arizona Office of Tourism, does do a good job in providing research opportunities through their programs every year, so I'll keep an eye open for that so that we can keep our costs low if they offer something that will satisfy these two research efforts. Business incubator. So business incubator for winemakers and vintners. I think this is a really interesting idea that I'd like to at least explore, kind of similar to what Ryan said. Some of these have not been fleshed out, as far as ideas just yet. So how this looks, I'm not exactly sure, but the concept is being able to provide some facility or service or group collection of, professionals in that viticulture space that can help attract aspiring viticulturists and vintners to Cottonwood and to open shop.
So can you explain to me what the city's role would be versus SBDC's role in this?
It could very well be just that, working with SBDC to come up with this idea, and, it's partnering and kind of convening the right people at the right table to kind of have a conversation about this idea. That would probably be the extent of our involvement. Yeah. And then another survey, but we got to start somewhere. We're going to need that research. So surveying residents and medical practitioners to identify the most urgent and significant gaps in healthcare services. So we heard that the residents want more in terms of healthcare options and services. This is the one, admittedly, the only one thing I have related to healthcare in the next immediate priorities, but that I do believe garnering research and understanding the environment is probably the first step in anything you do. So I think a survey to understand where those gaps are would be a start.
So I think I've seen this data from NIH, maybe from Spectrum. And I think that's something they should have done. If they haven't done it, that would be disappointing. I would actually propose that 4.5L be elevated to a next fiscal year priority, which states to develop a data-driven business case to promote the city and the Verde Valley to healthcare providers. That's something that I think is within the remit of what the city can do. Because I'm just, I don't know that it's the city's responsibility to do the survey to see where the gaps are. And again, it might be worth checking because I'm pretty sure that's already been done.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely check on that.
And I think the city, and I think we've talked about this, should have a data and promotional package that promotes the city to job candidates and employers in all area, not just healthcare.
Vice Mayor, wait, can you repeat that for me, please, just so I understand that last comment?
So just, I was talking, so the 4.5L talks about develop a data-driven business case to promote the city and the Verde Valley to healthcare providers. So I think that should be a priority move from long-term to more near-term. And I would revise that to say that it would be a data-driven business case, not only to healthcare providers, but to job candidates, employers, not just
Across industry.
Across the industry, across
got
all industries, yeah.
Okay.
I've been for the last probably 6 months or longer trying to set up a meeting with a new community development guy, or whatever his title is at NIH. And we've been going back and forth. And he would have that,
Okay.
I would guess. So, I forgot his name, but he's hard to get in touch with.
I'm blanking right now too, but I have it.
Yeah,
I have it
Ryan,
in
or whatever.
email.
I
I was
forget.
going to suggest talking
Rick
to
Ryan?
Vice President Rick Gray.
Rick Gray, I think, yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Rick Gray is
Okay.
who you would talk to, and he is, he's pushed quite a lot of this forward, as has CEO Dave Cheney. They're really working. They've done a great job, really, in the last year to bring in new healthcare providers in a range of specialty areas. So, they're on to that.
Yeah.
They're working on that. How they promote that, I don't know, but yeah, anything that we were doing in that line should probably tie in with the work that they've done.
Well, they have full-time recruiters, so,
Yes, they do.
it's just
Okay,
a
good.
matter of, partnering with that, with them also, and, what are the tools they use, and I'm all for, you having, these ongoing discussions with these organizations. I think it's really,
Perfect.
you sit down, you have the discussion, and all kinds of ideas flow out.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good input, thank you. And then the last piece is, this is the last one I promised, develop a comprehensive small business startup plan connected. I don't know about the regional side, but definitely at least the city's assets provide. And then this would be a piece, this is basically like to say how this is for entrepreneurial support, right? To encourage startups. It's kind of like the developer packet in a way, but to say, hey, you can start a new business in Cottonwood, and here's kind of what that looks like. So we could provide that. I said provide it with business registrations. That's if someone is a little further down the path of already knowing what they want to do and how. But the point is, it's meant to be supportive of entrepreneurial efforts.
And this again would be
entrepreneurial initiatives.
something the city can work on collaboratively with the SBDC and the
Exactly.
chamber,
Yep.
right? So
Arizona
it doesn't all
First.
fall on you.
Exactly, yep.
Arizona First.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, thank you. Thank you for your time.
I did have
and I
some more
absolutely am-
comments.
whatever you have.
There's a couple long-term priorities that I was wondering why they are long-term priorities. So the
Okay.
long-term is defined as 3 to 5 years. So 4.2C and D says plan for and invest in economic development opportunities on first, the frontage land on State Route 260 south of the city, and second on State Route 89A. So I was wondering why those are long-term priorities.
Long-term priorities, mainly because I know where we already have Old Town Cottonwood, of course, being discussed. That ball's already rolling. The airport is something that's also been in discussion. I haven't heard as much, to be honest, on the other two, so I'm trying to kind of spread the work. That was the logic. But I'm happy if Mario would want to chime in on that
Well,
part.
I think, and we keep coming back to it because it's a big part of it, but I think when Retail Strategies gets here and starts looking at all of our available property, when Ryan was here, he was, or no, when I talked with Ryan, but he was clear that we don't have much vacancy in existing buildings, so when they meet with prospective retailers, they're going to have to look at green space or vacant land, and I think that's where that will come into play.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the infrastructure on 260 is non-existent. So I think that would be a huge, I think that would be a huge investment, just right off the bat. So
What'd you say?
I think
infrastructure?
the infrastructure on 260 is kind of non-existent beyond Walmart, if I'm,
I think once we get the master plans that are underway for both of the utilities, then we'll have a better idea as to what that looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. My other question was on 4.5I. Let's see. So it says, identify additional supply chain industry opportunities from production to retail. And this could be an important piece of diversifying the city's economic portfolio. Feeding the supply chain industry was highlighted as an area for job opportunities at the Yavapai County Workforce Summit meeting that we attended.
Right.
So is this something that we should be thinking about?
Nudge up earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, we can absolutely start talking about it sooner.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be just Cottonwood, it would be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So with all that, okay, one more question and then a comment. So back to my initial comment about the industry mix of jobs is recorded as being limited. Are there steps in this economic development strategy that address that? That there's the industry mix of jobs is limited? And this continues to concern me just because, we have, the data showed in the report that, only one-third of workers earn more than $40,000 a year. So what can we do to bring in more jobs that are higher paying? And so when I looked through all the elements here in the economic development strategy, I didn't see anything. I mean, there's the education piece.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, I don't know, what are
I'm
your
with
thoughts?
you, though. There isn't anything that's specifically pointed
Right.
towards it, other than on the workforce side and the education side to,
Something
and the
to think
business
about.
attraction side, just to have that diversity and income levels and income types of professions. But,
If I could, the limitation is because of the limitation of industry itself. We are living in an area where most of us are working in an area of service. Everybody who's working here, apart from people who work at the cement plant or in rare rare occasions, someplace like Molden Graphics, there just aren't a lot of, factory sorts of jobs which would offer administrative, managerial, and, floor-level work for people to do. It's the limitation of our industries, and it has to do with the fact that a lot of our industry is service-based, and, we're food service, we have hospitality, we have tourism. Other than that, we have people who are at the bank or,
And so given that, I wonder if could we do something like retail strategies, but for the non-retail businesses that we want to attract? Could they do a similar analysis and define how we could attract those businesses here?
I think it also goes into the work from home thing, right? Like we
Right.
talked about, like that remote work. I think that's a way to help that gap, is get people here who don't have to be somewhere else.
Well, if you look at it from a macro level also, I mean, you have,
I just can't hear you.
oh. You look at, at a federal level, what's going on. There's a lot, they're increasing tariffs. What's part of the purpose of that? Well, it's to bring industry back to America. Well, how do we strike that iron while it's hot? And so I agree with you, Vice Mayor Coates. Maybe there is a retail strategy similar organization or resource that we could leverage.
Or like I was mentioning before about, attracting some of the supply chain that's feeding TSMC.
Right.
How do we do that? I mean, I know Yavapai College is trying to figure that out themselves too.
Right.
So it's something.
Yeah, and planning and zoning, Chairwoman Lindsay Maston has pointed out, she's from California, and she's pointed out, well, we've got all of this wine, but where are the bottles coming from? Who's printing the label? I mean, there are a number of elements in marketing wine that maybe industries could come here and provide those services and support the wine industry. But, where are they, and are they interested in coming? Yeah, it's a question.
And that's where I think a firm like Retail Strategies, but one that would be skilled at looking at other industries such as
I understand.
the wine industry,
Yep.
that could complement what's already here, but defining that for us. And
Yeah.
The only thing I have wrong with that, that's a great idea. I hate to dilute this thing, so we're doing 20 different things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the only problem I have with
That was going to
that.
be my next comment is, these are all great. Right. But you're one person. I mean, how in the world, how's this going to happen on this time?
Well, and that is part of the way the spreading of the prioritization was considering bandwidth, for sure, because I wanted to, frankly, we have some of it already in progress. Some of them are, short-term quick wins that I know we can do without a lot of money or time even. The other piece that I think I have on that maybe is different than when Tricia had this work and tried to balance the two also is that she spent some time, like I said earlier, setting the foundation for the DMO. That's a lift, and she did that. So that's already rolling. We've got the right partners in place. It's a nicely oiled machine. Doesn't mean I still don't have to provide oversight, still don't have to review everything, and et cetera. So it's not to say that it's going on its own, but it's not as much of a lift as what Tricia had. So I think that's a good thing. That helps me that opens up my bandwidth to do more of this then.
But, like she was, sorry. Like,
I guess one of
Ms.
the questions we want to ask you as a council is, do you feel like you have the resources to do to execute on the priorities? Because, for me, economic development is a huge priority for, because I think other things fall in behind it. When you talk about, being able to, improve upon our existing resources and solving our issues with housing. A lot of it has to do with, improving the economic development in the city. So, our question to you is, as a city council, is our investment in economic development adequate?
Well, I appreciate that question. That's a great question. I might have to defer to my city manager on this one.
And I think I told you folks, we'll take a look at that. But I think Mr. Marks and Ms. Coates, it goes back to what you said earlier. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is there tangible evidence that if we threw another body or another 10 bodies at it, we would secure these businesses? And I'll tell you right now, the answer is no. It's, that's not going to result in that.
I agree with that, but
But I think,
we don't want to shortchange ourselves.
No, absolutely not. And I was very clear with Ms. Kostecki that, if you reach a point where, hey, I can't shoulder this load anymore, and I think, Ryan will tell you, other staff will tell you, I've asked all of them, I think they all have broad shoulders, but there comes a time where they have to be very candid with me and just say, I can't do it. And then that's when we need to look at getting them to help, specifically in this economic development side of things.
Yeah, he's got a thick skin, so don't hold back.
And
I
he
do.
did say that. I mean, you thank you.
No, absolutely.
That was mentioned right away. So I think this is a start, and I think we need to start down the path and see how it goes. And I appreciate your input tonight. It was helpful. And I think, there may be some adapting.
I want to make sure we're moving fast enough, because we're in competition
Yes.
with other communities in the Verde Valley.
Right. Yeah, we are.
And I just want to thank you. I mean, you've been here a short time, and for you to pick this up and bring
Yeah.
it here tonight, it's very impressive, and
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you
We're
very much.
very fortunate to have you.
What's that?
We're very fortunate to have you.
Oh, thank you.
We're thankful.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you. That
And
means a
we're
lot.
really not trying to just load more and more on your shoulders.
No,
Just,
but- But we have to
Oh,
be
absolutely.
realistic.
let's just see, get things rolling and see how it goes, because there's a lot of potential here, and I'm really interested to see how things work, especially with retail strategies coming on board.
Yes, yeah.
So
Well,
that'll
and
be-
retail strategies is a excellent point to show how you can contract out if you need to, and speak with and work with the experts in a space, and that is one way to make things happen efficiently.
Remind me
also.
of the dollar amount on that.
Pardon?
What's the contract for retail strategies?
$45,000 a year for 3 years.
I was asking that because I was thinking if we were looking at other business opportunities beyond retail, about how much would it cost?
Yeah, we'll have to investigate that idea also that you're talking about, the retail strategies type.
Plus, as
Other-
Mario, I believe, has said, it's not going to happen the first year.
And like I said, I've spent 20 years directly involved in economic development. I'm not aware of a firm that would go out and find non-retail type stuff. I mean, you may have brokers or headhunters or something that's going to look out there. I think our greatest opportunity lies in the valley. The conversation, Mayor, when you and I were at that meeting, they had the conversation that the rise of the semiconductor industry is going to increase the price of adjacent land to the point where certain businesses aren't going to be able to afford their lease anymore. And that's the prime opportunity to go after those businesses to see if you could relocate them here to Cottonwood.
We need to be ready.
Yeah.
On a number of levels.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And if all of our questions are done, we can.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.